And I used to tell people desperation is the greatest motivation.
Mm,
If you're wired that way, right? I'm wired that way.
right.
But for some people, that's gonna make them lose everything. They're not wired that way. So I'm more cautious now when I use that phrase, who I teach that to, because if you're not wired right, that could be the wrong move for you. But if you're somebody that needs to go all in, that's the right approach. I needed to go all in to succeed.
Hello, my friend, and welcome to another episode of I Love Being Sober, sponsored by Camelback Recovery, Arizona's preferred mental health and addiction treatment option to help newcomers on their path to recovery. If that's you or someone you know, then you're in the right place, because my name is Tim Westbrook and I'm the CEO and founder of Camelback Recovery here in the always sunny and always sober Phoenix, Arizona, where my team and I, over the course of many years, have helped thousands of people to stop their suffering and continue on their path to recovery. Now, today, our guest, you may have seen him as a featured expert on Dateline NBC or read one of his quotes in major publications such as the Wall Street Journal. As the founder of the Center for Respect, an author, and a Hall of Fame speaker, he travels the world each year, sharing with tens of thousands of businesses, organizations, educational institutions, and the U.S. military. Mike Domitrz is one of the most sought-after experts on respect. Amongst other things, that's what we're going to talk about today. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Tim. Excited to be here.
Yeah, we've known each other for a few years. We met through Genius Network, and I'm really excited to kind of get to know a little bit more about you. There's always so many other things going on that I don't know if we've ever really gotten the chance to sit down and talk. So I'm excited.
I am too, for the exact same reason. Yeah. It was 2018 when we first met.
Okay, so we joined at the same time then.
We did. Yeah. It was that November annual meeting.
Yes. I remember. So what gives you the right to claim you are an expert on respect?
Well, I don't. So the industry does. That's the reality of it, right? If I ran around saying I was an expert on respect and that didn't align with what industry saw occurring, I would be laughed out of the room. Right? And so the only way that somebody can say that is when industry has decided to say that. And they refer to me as one of the leading subject matter experts or authors on the topic. So they really decide that. That means the U.S. military refers to me as a subject matter expert on this topic, top educational universities and school systems around the country, and same with businesses. So the reason that that's able to be there is because others believe that's true of me who work in those fields.
Okay. What specific incident happened that caused you to be so passionate about this topic?
Yeah, right. So nobody grows up as a young kid going, I'm going to speak for a living on respect. That's not in the
Right.
category. I'm going to be a firefighter or a pro athlete or, or a skater, whatever it is somebody dreams of being. You don't typically think of that. No, and I didn't either. I was off in college studying what I wanted to become at the time and received a phone call. And the phone call was from my mom that the youngest of my older sisters, I have 3 older sisters, had been raped. And in that moment, my life would change forever. It started with rage and anger and then confusion. And over time, I would start to recognize, wait, what is this? Because in 1989, schools didn't talk about this. So it's not like when the case happened, we were highly educated. And you could go, oh, here's what must have happened. That's not how it worked. At most, you heard about it in the news if a case happened, and that was really rare that was covered in the news. So this person was caught. So I actually went to the library at the university to see what those crimes were, exactly how they're described. And I saw consent being defined. And I was like, wait a second. It would imply, by the way, I'm reading this, it didn't say it, but I would imply you would almost need to ask to know the answer to this. And so I started going to my friends because I was thinking, wait, nobody taught me to ask. So I went to my friends and I said, do you ask? And they're like, are you joking? Who asked? And then I went to the people who I knew were the more passive ones in relationships that I knew. And I'm like, do you get asked? And they're like, are you joking? You're not given a choice.
Now, how old are you at this time?
19, 20.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And I had heard a speaker on campus that ignited this in me. I heard this speaker on this topic. It was the first time ever in my life. And this was after what happened to my sister. And I thought, wait a second, I can
And
do something.
how old was your sister at that time?
At the time of the assault, my sister was 23.
Okay.
And so I was 19, she was 23. And I heard the speaker and I thought, wait, I could do something about this. And I went to that speaker and said, I want to do something about this. And I was lucky he was from an hour away. So I actually went and met with him at his house. And he said, Mike, nobody ever shows up. People say all the time, I want to be a speaker too, but nobody takes action on it. You showed up. And so he just gave me tons of information. And from that, I wrote my own first speech, went to my local high school where I graduated from, and went to a teacher I trusted and said, could I share this with your students? And she trusted me and said, absolutely. And that's where it all began, Tim.
Wow. And how long ago was that?
That, when I first started speaking, was 33 years ago.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And so have you gone off on tangents, or have you pretty much been focused on this throughout your?
No, this was a rough road. So keep in mind that when I started doing this, I was 20 and I looked 14 or 15. And I wish I could tell you that I'm exaggerating,
Right.
but I'm not. So
Okay.
schools would look at me and go, you think we're letting some little kid talk about this? You're nuts. And but look, this class I just talked to loved it. You're way too young to be talking about this. Now, keep in mind, they weren't letting people with doctorates talk about this, right? Nobody was talking about this. So I would get into schools every now and then. It would go great. They'd give great testimonials, but the other schools still wouldn't trust it because it wasn't being discussed. So they were scared of the topic. And then two, they looked at me and said, no way, he looks too young. What are the likelihood he could be effective, right? And ironically, at that time, the youth worked because it allowed me to connect with the students, right? They were my age.
Yeah.
So it actually gave me a connection point, but they couldn't see that at the time. So I did this for 2 years, full time, while going to college. And even a year after college, ran a full-time business on speaking, and finally realized I'm not going to survive the way this is going because society's not there to have this conversation. So I stepped away from it and did some other things along the way, running my own businesses, coaching. And about 8 years later, while I was doing some speaking on a different area, like team building, a person said to me in the meetings industry, why don't you speak for a living? This is where your fire clearly appears to be. And I shared with them, well, I tried. And they said, the world has changed since you walked away from it. They're looking for you now. So that now I'm 32 when this conversation happens.
Okay.
And 2 weeks later, I sell my business pretty much for just so I had zero debt. So I have no cash to work with.
Okay.
Right? So I got no cash to work with. We had, at this time in our lives, have 4 sons, all young, really, really young.
Okay.
So family of 6, we're in an 800 square foot house and no income because I've sold the business for zero. I mean, not for zero, but it cleared my debt.
I understand.
Right. Right. Yeah. And that's where the journey really began. And that was 2002. And so for the last 21 years, we've been full-time living in this world.
Wow. Wow. Talk about burning the boats.
Yeah. Oh, I did. Absolutely. And I used to tell people desperation is the greatest motivation. If you're wired that way, right? I'm wired that way.
Right.
But for some people, that's gonna make them lose everything. They're not wired that way. So I'm more cautious now when I use that phrase, who I teach that to, because if you're not wired right, that could be the wrong move for you. But if you're somebody that needs to go all in, that's the right approach. I needed to go all in to succeed.
That's interesting. I've never thought about it. I've never thought about it like that. I mean, just without thinking about it or without really thinking about it, it's like you burn the boats. I mean, you go all in, like you're forced to make it work.
Yes.
I guess if you're, in your opinion, if you're not wired that way, you're going to lose everything and be homeless or whatever. I mean,
well, you're going to be frustrated because you're not wired to take that risk.
Right.
So the difference is my brain said, risk? What risk? Of course we're going to succeed.
Right.
Right. And so that's a wiring difference. Now, did that mean we succeeded? No, we bombed. So, we struggled through
Mhm.
those first early years left and right. So we'd
Yeah.
have successes, and then, oh, all this debt we took to make this work suddenly has to be paid. Right. And so all these things are happening at the same time. But the brain was, we're going to make it. We're going to make it. I have met people that said, if I had gone through that same situation, I would have gotten a job. I would have done this. I would have done that. Had I gotten a job or done any of those things, I would have been too distracted to get to this level of success I need to get to for this to take off. And so that's the difference in how we can be wired.
Right. No, and I can relate to that because I'm wired that way as well. I mean, I've lost everything. I mean, I
Right.
mean, so yeah, I can totally relate. And it's kind of a different personality. It would have been, I guess, easy to go and just go get a job, and
Yeah.
that's just
But
not what I was willing to do.
ironically about that, Tim, in financially, it might have been easier. But when we're wired the way we're wired, our souls would have been in hell
Yeah.
taking that job.
Well, it's
Because
like
we
what's
wouldn't be in alignment where we're supposed to be.
right. No, and it's what do I really want, and what's on the
Yeah.
other side of the work. And I heard something. The people that succeed are not necessarily the smartest or the hardworking or the most talented. The people that succeed are the people that don't quit.
Right. Well, and isn't that a fascinating one? Because there's also a caution to that. Because
Mm.
sometimes the most successful people know when to quit. Right. So
Right.
if I was in the wrong path,
Right.
then I need to know when to quit. If I'm on the right path, I agree 100% with that quote. If I'm on the right path and correct alignment, the only difference is not giving up. And that's how I
Right.
got to where I was. And that's true. That's 100% true because we could have given up a million different times.
Well, and
And we,
I think you have to kind of have a vision of
you know,
what's on the
yeah,
other side of it. And if you can visualize what's on the other side of it, that doesn't necessarily mean that you need to know how it's going to happen,
correct.
but you can visualize like this is what's on the other side of the sacrifices and the work and the dedication.
Yeah. And is everybody in your life on the vision with you that you want on the journey?
Right,
Right? So
right,
it can't just be your vision, right? I mean, you and I both know with, the people we know in the industries we know, how many people go after it and are divorced
right,
because they did not paint the vision with their partner.
right,
And their partner's like, I didn't sign up for this. And they weren't part of the vision. And you failed to teach them the vision. Or you share the vision and they didn't want any part of it. Now, by the way, that's probably healthy then, because if you're going to go on this journey, you want someone on your side who gets the journey and the vision and wants it to happen for you, even if they don't know how, even if they don't want to be involved with it, but they want it for you. That's what's really critical. If they don't want it for you, then you have to sit there and go, well, maybe this isn't the right partner for my life. They don't want this fulfillment for me.
right. And I'm just thinking about Jim Rohn's quote: "You are the average of the five people that you spend the most time with." And environment wins, as Ben Hardy talks about the environment, and it's like surrounding yourself with people that are going to support whatever it is that you're going after. People that are call them, they're supportive, they're optimistic, they support your vision, as opposed to people that are putting you down and telling you that you can't do it.
Oh,
I think
100%. Yeah.
I think it's important to surround yourself around people. I mean, I can remember times in my life, I mean, just making choices. The path of least resistance is to continue spending time with people that I already have relationships with. However, I have to make the decisions if those relationships are not serving my purpose, if those relationships are not serving what I want my life to look like. I need to go find some people that have a life that looks the way that I want my life to look.
Yes. My closest friends that I talk to the most often, I pick up the phone and call in circumstances where I need either emotional, physical, psychological, whatever mindset shift, or
Right,
just someone to listen, weren't in my life 20 years ago.
right,
The far majority of them.
right,
Right now, that doesn't mean there aren't a few that were in my life 20 years ago. There are, but the far majority of them, there's three people I can think of right now that I didn't know before getting into the speaking industry.
hmm,
But we met each other through the speaking industry, and we were such like-minded souls that
right.
it's like we were brothers from day one. And that is a very powerful, special experience. And having those people makes a huge difference in the tough times. And it makes the joyous times way more joyous because there's sometimes happier for you than you're happier for you. I mean, it's or I remember getting nominated for an award that I didn't receive. And the person who nominated me was one of these people. He was way more enraged than I was that I didn't get the award.
Right.
He was furious. Like, how could they not have seen that you deserve this award? But that's how you know you have the right people, because they're so passionate for your success that they can pass you up on days when you need that, by the way, to have somebody push you and fire you up because they want it so much for you. And you want it so much for them. This is very mutuality. Isn't a one-way drainage road, right? It's a mutual. You do the same for them. You're as excited for them.
Right. So who's your audience? Who's your message most appropriate for?
Well, that's the one part that I really love about my work is there's no one answer to my work in this category. I have 4 highly distinctly different audiences I work with. And they are the following. They are middle schools and high schools. And even within that, there's parents. So right there's 2 different audiences. But we'll put them as one. And then I have colleges and universities. Right? So that's a separate one. And then I have U.S. military. That's the 3rd one. We do a lot of work with the U.S. military all over the world. The 4th is corporate. Now, the first 3 that I just named, universities, middle schools, high schools, military, they're bringing me in to stop sexual violence. That's the reason they want me there. And that is the focus of the work that I do with them. Now, I do a lot of other work with them, like helping leaders transform the culture. So these things are never happening in the first place. So we teach them how to be better speakers and trainers around these topics, but it's all relating to that. The corporate work, completely different focus. They are bringing me in because they want retention. They want greater performance amongst their employees. They want to lift the whole organization. And we know that the greatest way to do that is everyday respect. If you feel respected every day you walk into the office, Tim, you're way more likely to be productive, happy, and fulfilled on that job because you see yourself as valued and seen. But nobody teaches us how to do that for ourselves and each other in the workplace. There's horrible cliches like, respect is earned, not given. What a ridiculous concept. So you hired me, but I still have to do something to prove I'm worthy of you seeing me? That makes no sense. Why wouldn't you want to treat me like somebody who matters day one so I'm productive day one, so I feel valued day one? But people are not taught these skills.
Now, are you saying that respect and feeling valued they go hand in hand?
They do, because here's the really beautiful part. When you ask an audience, doesn't matter what their age is, what does it mean to be disrespected? Now, what would you guess some of those words could be, Tim? Like, what does it feel like? What words come to mind if you think I'm being disrespected?
They're not listening to me. They're not taking my feedback. They're just totally disregarding my feelings and my thoughts.
You're not being seen. You're not being heard. The words that we hear commonly is I'm invisible.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right. So it goes right back to what you just asked.
Right. Exactly. Okay.
Yeah. So respect means the opposite of all that. I'm seen for exactly who I am. And this is one that we challenge companies and leaders with all the time. You never talk about my potential. Because my potential implies I'm only of value if I get over there.
Okay.
I'm not value right now. You have great potential. What am I now?
Okay.
Nobody really wants to hear they have great potential. You know what they want to hear? You're great. You're amazing. Now,
how about you're great and?
Yeah, that's still better. Yes.
Okay.
I'm okay with you going, hey, you know what? You're amazing what you do. Where you're going to take this over the next 5 years, really exciting. Look at how different that is. Wow, I see a lot of potential in you. Can't wait to see when that happens.
Right.
Ooh,
right. Versus you're doing so great, and I'm excited to see where this goes.
Yeah, look at the difference, right? That's a huge difference.
Mm-hmm. Right. What's the difference between your message to your corporate message versus schools and military?
Yeah. So the corporate is what we're discussing right now. How do you treat each other with respect? And we actually have like steps you take, specific steps you take every day when you walk in the office to shift your corporate culture. And it's a slope and then a stairway. So it's the 7 steps. And it's super easy to follow, right? So that is the world of corporate. All the others that I said are more about, they bring me in to stop sexual violence, to build healthy communication around sexual decision-making and boundaries. So there, I'm talking about sexual and intimate relationships. And if it's 12-year-olds, we're in middle school, we're talking about honoring boundaries, respecting your own body, respecting other people's boundaries, and making sure you're not being pressured into something, you're not pressuring people into things, and knowing that it's okay to say no. Children are afraid to say no, even to their own peers. Forget about adults, which they also fear saying no to. Then you get into high school, still they fear saying no. So they're saying yes to sexual activity they don't want to have, but they think it's too mean to say no. And by the way, that's the majority of people of all ages who don't want to have sex with a partner still say yes because they think it's mean to say no, including in marriages. Wow. So partners are saying, do you want to have sex tonight? Sure. Why are they saying sure? Because they think it's too mean to say no. They don't want to have sex.
Right.
But they'll tell their partner sure because we'll just get this over with because it's better than saying no.
Well,
and that's really unhealthy.
Well, and I think that's people pleasing. And a lot of people don't have the courage to have hard conversations. People don't have the courage. It's like life is easy if you live it the hard way and hard if you live it the easy way. And it's a lot of times people, to your point, they don't want to cause any friction. And they think that speaking their mind, they think that sharing their boundaries, they think that sharing their feelings is going to cause friction. Therefore, they just don't say anything.
Yeah. And they think it's mean. That's actually the word you hear out of people. Well, saying no is mean. What? The word no does not have any emotion to it. Now, if you say it in a mean way, no, right? Okay. That might sound mean to some people, right? But if you're like, well, thank you for asking, not tonight. There's nothing mean in that at all, right? But what happened was when they were children, their parents asked them if they would mow the lawn by 5 o'clock. And the kid said, no, I got other plans today. And the parents said, oh, you're mowing the lawn by 5 o'clock, right? And whenever I share the example to him, everybody starts laughing because they're like, oh, I've done that as a parent. Or I remember my parents doing that to me. But what did the child learn? When given a choice by someone who cares about me, I can't say no.
Right.
It's not allowed. And then they get it reinforced their whole life. And they become teenagers and adults, and they believe saying no is mean. So one of the big lessons we teach people is, and by the way, I'll give you a great example of leaders who go, oh, I've built a great culture. My people know that I respect them and I value them. I say, great. How often do they say no to you? And they'll be like, they don't say no to me too often. Well, that's odd. Because if they felt safe, wouldn't they be saying no to you as often as they say yes? And so
I'm thinking about that. I mean, I'm like, if I've got my team saying no to me, then I'm like, well, why are you working here?
No, reverse that question. Why did I ask them a question they weren't actually supposed to say no to? See, this is the biggest mistake we make as leaders. We forget that there's a difference in a command and a question. Mm-hmm. And we walk in the room and saying, can you do this? Yes or no? And if they say no, we think, how dare they say no? That's why they work for me. That's why they work for the company. How dare you ask a question when you were giving a command? Should have walked in the room and said, this needs to be done by 5. I know this might be a bit of a fire situation that you weren't planning on, but I'm going to ask you to put everything else aside. And I'm not going to expect you to get the things done I had you planned to get done today because I'm doing this. I'm causing this. But you need to get this done by 5. Notice the difference in that and Tim. And if I walk in and going, hey, are you able to get this done by 5 o'clock? And you say no. And I go, well, you have to. Now, what's the employee feeling like? Why'd you ask? Why'd you just do that? It was totally manipulative. Right? And it was. So one of the things we teach parents, there's nothing wrong with giving a command. Just don't put it in a question because people learn from that.
What's the biggest myth around respect?
Well, the biggest myth we already started to get into a little bit earlier is that this is something that you have to earn from me and it's not given. Now, what we can do now is dive into why that's a problem. right? So, because a lot of people believe, no, you got to earn my respect. You got to earn my respect. All right. So here's how that works. I come to work for you, Tim. You're responsible for me. You're my first supervisor in charge of me. And your attitude is, Mike, you got to earn my respect. So now I am focused on what I have to do, not who I am is good enough, what I have to do to prove to Tim that I'm worthy of being treated with respect, right? That already is not healthy because that might not be in alignment with the missions of the organization or who I am. It doesn't matter because I got to do what I have to do to keep Tim happy. But here's where it gets worse. I do that and I get your respect. And now somebody I'm responsible for gets hired. Try to guess what I do. The exact same game, because that's how I learned this organization works. Now, what are we in? We're in a power game. Every time I move up, I have to play games to get approved. Versus every time I moved up, everybody in the room should respect me because I worked to get there. And the company chose me to be in the room. So why is this not an issue of the second I walk in, we're all giving each other respect. We all matter at this table. Now you can lose my trust. Mm-hmm. You can lose my admiration, but I'm going to always treat you with respect as a fellow human being. And that's the mistake people will make. They'll go, but they're going to lose my trust if they don't do the right thing. Oh, you seem to be, trust is a different word than respect.
Right.
All right. Well, what about, I got that respect, so I got a raise. Nope. That's admiration. You get a raise because you earned it, by the way. That's a separate issue from respect. And so when you look at respect, being seen and valued, go back to what we just described earlier. Everybody should be seen and valued in the workplace.
Right. Right. What is the ideal sexual standard for people?
I love this question. So when I ask parents or I talk to leaders in the U.S. military or of educational institutions, you know what you don't want. Everybody will tell you, well, I know the worst case scenario is sexual violence, is sexual assault. So I know that's the don't, right? We're going to tell the world, don't commit sexual violence, don't commit sexual assault. Got it. Okay. I say, that's great. You do know what you don't want. What do you want? And they are dumbfounded. Parents, leaders, they don't know what they want for their young people sexually. They only know what they don't want. Now, what's the problem with that, Tim? Does anybody like being told what not to do? No one does. Right. You don't like being told what not to do, probably.
No,
I don't like being told what not to do. Kids don't like being told what not to do. And the only thing we talk about sex with young people and people of many ages is what not to do. And then we go, why isn't this working? Because you don't have a to-do full focus. Mm-hmm. So then you say to parents, well, what's the extreme opposite of sexual violence? And they'll say, well, consent. That's a good answer, right? You got to be excited. Okay, they're at least now on the slope. We're getting somewhere. Mm-hmm. The problem is consent's not the standard of excellence. Consent is the bare minimum requirement. Imagine if I said to you, Tim, my marriage is so amazing, it's consensual. You'd be like, Mike, that's creepy. Like what were your last relationships if they weren't consensual? That should be the bare minimum. But our world right now is running around going consent, consent, consent as a standard of excellence. Mm-hmm. And they should be going, that's the bare minimum. If you've got it, all you can do is start. That's it. If you don't have it, nothing can happen. It's the bare minimum. Now, if that means it's midway up the slope, because anything under it, we got trouble towards sexual assault. Anything above it, we're at least in a beginning positive space. Now, what's the extreme? So you want to take a shot, Tim? What would you guess? Consent's the bare minimum. What would take it to another level?
Excitement.
All right, that's there. That's good. That's part of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Excited. I want to do this. It's not.
There you go. So we call you both want to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both want to do it. We're both excited about it. We're like, yes, let's do this.
Yes. So the phrase is mutually amazing consensual sex. Or sexual intimacy, but it's mutually amazing consensual. And when you put that up on a screen in front of a crowd, everybody freaks out over one word out of mutually amazing consensual sex. What word would you guess they freak out over?
Mutually amazing consensual sex. I don't know.
Amazing.
Okay, I was gonna say amazing, but I mean amazing.
Yeah,
sounds good to me.
Yeah, here's why it freaks people out. It freaks people out because their sexual standards are taught to be so low that when you put amazing next to sex, people are like, whoa. What should happen in a healthy sexual understanding is that I would put those words up on a screen in front of a crowd, mutually amazing consensual sex, and everybody in the room would go, well, of course. Why else would I choose to be sexually active if it wasn't going to be mutually amazing consensual sex? But instead, what our world does today, including parents, including people in marriages of 30 years, is go, whoa, amazing. What's that? Because they're not used to it. And then they see mutually amazing.
I think amazing is the word usually used after the fact, not before.
That's right. That's right.
Right.
If it is, because it wasn't the standard of excellence. It was the surprised outcome.
Okay.
Right. So that's why we call it amazing. That's right. But and then you have people who go, but wait, Mike, you said mutually amazing. And some people are funny and they're like, are you going a little too far there? That it's going to both are going to have this amazing experience? And which it should be. Well, isn't that the point? Why are you involving this other human being? I mean, you could have a sexual, let's be blunt here. You could have a sexual outcome without another human being ever involved, but you chose to bring another person into this situation. So why are we not shooting for mutual, right? Two people involved in what can be a high risk situation, by the way. So if it's going to have all this risk, why not have it be a mutually amazing experience? And that shifts the standard. Now, here's where it gets fun is you go, all right, so mutually amazing consensual sex is truly the opposite of sexual assault, which I think we'd all agree. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
All right, parents, how are you teaching your kids about that? And they freeze. What do you mean how am I teaching my kids about that? We don't talk about that. So all you've done is told your kids, don't commit sexual violence. They have no idea even about mutually amazing. Their standard is consent. Think about how low their bar is to become sexually active with another person. Mm-hmm. As long as they say yes, we're good to go. That's their bar.
Mm-hmm.
Versus,
as long as it's as long as they don't say no.
Yeah, that's right, and that's even more dangerous. That's even that's super dangerous. That's the old school that is still sticking around. Yes.
Yeah, as long as they don't say no, we're good.
Yeah, 100%. That is the old school way that is still here. I'm agreeing with you. That is absolutely there. We're seeing a shift with the younger generation where they're trying to ask now. They're giving it a shot, but they're not there yet. That's why we have the work we do. And we joke, not joke. We're serious about this, but people think it's a joke when I say it. Mm-hmm. I wish that I could put myself out of a job. Right. Because if everybody was doing this, I would have to find different work to speak on. But we have so far to go. Because
I think it's what was the norm, what has the norm been for forever, right? And so you're trying to change, you're changing the norm, or that's the goal is to change the norm. So of course there's going to be resistance, and people are gonna laugh at changing the norm.
That's right. Oh, I get more hecklers than most speakers could ever imagine.
Right.
Because this is such a personal topic that's never been confronted in front of a room before. Like they might have been confronted one-on-one with a partner, but they've never been confronted in a room full of people around sexual decision-making. So the defense system is, I got to prove the speaker wrong. Because if I don't prove the speaker wrong, I have to look in the mirror and make changes.
Right.
But if I can prove the speaker wrong, then I don't have to change.
Mm.
So I am more likely to get hecklers because this is such a triggering discussion that people go, well, wait a second, what about this? Well, what about that? Or do you do this? Do you do that? Trying to come after me personally, that kind of a thing. I'm used to it all. I welcome the conversation so we can turn it into a learning moment. But it all, especially when you get into mutually amazing, they're like, are you going too far? What's too far about wanting to have a mutually amazing experience with a partner?
Mm-hmm.
But that just tells you how many thousands of years of cultural norms we have that are unhealthy, that just weren't discussed. They were just accepted as they were.
What is the most common mistake parents make when discussing respect?
Well, part of it is when we're discussing respect, I'm going to do this two parts here. The one part about respect is they'll do this one. You got to make them respect you. No. Here's what parents should say. When somebody doesn't treat you with respect, move on to someone who does. Because you deserve to always be treated with respect. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't give them a chance to explain yourself, right? So let's say you feel my partner just disrespected me. That doesn't mean you run from the room and never talk to them again. But what you could say there is, hey, what you just said, so you're clear, here's what that meant to me and how it felt to me. If they're like, I don't care how you feel, I don't care about you, you're not worthy of, okay, that means you don't actually value me as a human being. Out, get out. But a lot of young people think unhealthy relationship, still better than no relationship. I don't want to be the loner. I don't want to be the individual. And by the way, a lot of adults, you and I have seen 40-year-olds, right? They get divorced. 2 months later, they're getting married. Right? Now, sometimes that can truly be love and it can be wonderful. There are other times where it's just, I got to be with someone. I can't be alone. Right. And so they hop to an unhealthy just to be in something versus imagine if they got divorced and went, you know what? Now's my chance to find the mutually amazing. Clearly, we didn't have it. Now's my chance to find mutually amazing. And that's a high bar. So I'm going to give myself time to let that come into my life.
Well, I think having healthy boundaries, having healthy conversations with people, everybody doesn't know how.
Yes.
And if they were not taught how, if the people that they were around, their parents, the people they learned from, if they didn't learn how to have healthy conversations, then they just don't know how to do it.
That's right. And so many of us were taught to say the right thing. And this is something that I struggle with. And it's not that a certain person taught me that. It's that I somehow was taught to believe that. Mm-hmm. Say the right thing in these situations. So they're afraid that if I say the wrong thing, it'll do more harm. So I'll say nothing. And what they don't recognize is how much harm they just did for themselves by saying nothing. Because they allowed their soul to be shut down so their brain could say, we're doing the right thing. And their soul's hurting because it's not allowed to express.
I'm laughing because I'm thinking about this. I don't even know if I should talk about this, but okay. So I'm on this dating app, and this girl, so we match, and she asked me all these questions, and she's like, "Hey, answer these questions, and then I'll let you know if if we should get together." And I'm kind of laughing. I'm going, "So you just want me to tell you what I think you want to hear?" Because that's kind of all it is like,
it could be.
I mean, like I was honest, but it was an opportunity because it's like, if we think we should get together, let's just get together and then we can kind of see, as opposed to let me answer these questions and let me try to figure out how to, and I probably, the old me, 15 years ago would have been more like, okay, let me tell her what she wants to hear. But today I'm like, I'm just going to answer the way that I think I should answer.
There you go. And that is the difference, right? So it's not that answering the questions is wrong, because she might be asking those because she's found over time red flags appear all over with certain answers. Right. And so it's not that she's looking for the right answer. It's that she's watching for the wrong answers. Right. And that's helped her. That's been a safety measure. And that's where, especially as, we're males, it's different for us. Because we don't go to the fear. We haven't had the fear factor ingrained in us throughout our life. Whereas a woman's more likely to have gone through fear factor situations around this. And so understandably. But what I love about you said is, because I would have done the same thing as you. When I was young and I was single, I would have thought, what's the right answer? What's the right answer for each of these questions? Right. Where now what I've learned is just answer. If this person is not going to like the answer, that's okay.
That's okay.
They're not the right fit.
Because if I'm not being authentic, then it's going to come out anyways.
Yes.
It's just not going to work.
And you have wasted money and time on this fake version of Tim.
Right.
For this person. And they could be, for all we know, giving their fake version too, right?
Of course. Yeah, of course.
It could be where, but if I'd put my true answers and it scared them away, I could have had time for somebody else during that time that was the right fit.
Right. How do you help someone overcoming feeling like they owe sex?
Yeah, this is really common. And I'm going to give you an example, Tim, that's so common that most listeners will actually stop and go, I've said that. Or my partner has said that. And here it is. One partner says to the other, want to have sex tonight? The person who's being asked does not want to have sex. Before they say not tonight, they say one word. Want to guess what the one word might be?
I don't know.
Here it is. Sorry, not tonight. Sorry, I have a headache. Sorry, I'm not in the mood. Sorry, I'm tired. Why are they saying sorry? This is the evidence of how much we have taught people they owe sexual pleasure to a partner who wants it in the moment. Because otherwise, you would never say sorry. You would just say, not tonight, or not tonight, I'm tired. You don't have to give a reason, but if you want to, not tonight, this, but you wouldn't say sorry. Sorry implied I did something wrong by saying no when it was a choice, not a rejection. I didn't reject you, Tim, in that moment. I made a choice for me of what was right for me and my body, my mind, and my soul in that moment. Had nothing to do with you. Now, if we're arguing and we're mad at each other, yeah, you might have something to do with why I said no. But if that's not the case, I might just be saying no for me. It has nothing to do with you. But what the partner will do when they hear no, why don't you want to have sex with me? Wait a second. Did I always say I want to go across the street and have sex with a neighbor? Because I don't think I said that. I said I don't want to have sex.
Mm-hmm.
But they make it about themselves and they make it about rejection, even though you were talking choice. And so it's really important for everybody out there to hear, one, no one knows sexual intimacy. Now, logically, everybody knows that. I speak in middle schools and high school, so really young, right? And you ask the question, does anybody ever owe sexual activity or intimacy? They all yell no. They know the right answer. But in the heat of the moment, they think, well, I got to do something, right? And so that's where we have to have these discussions at early ages so they can recognize if I don't owe it, that means I don't owe it ever. That includes in the heat of the moment. I don't owe it. This is my choice. And so there's no shame or guilt in saying yes or no. That's the key there, right? To remove that from this equation and helping people of all ages recognize every time I choose to be sexually active, it should be because I want to every time. Now, I'll have people ask me, well, Mike, what about this example? What about an older couple, as in a mature adult couple, and I'm not in the mood to have sexual intercourse, but I want to do something for my partner. I want to. So I'm going to go down on my partner. I don't want my partner to have sex. I don't want my partner to enter me. I don't want my partner to go down on me, but I want to do this for my partner because I want to do something for them. Are you saying, Mike, that's not mutual, so I shouldn't do that? Not at all. What was the key phrase they said, Tim? I want to.
Right.
So in other words,
I want to do something for my,
I want to do something for my partner. So that is a mutual experience. You want to do this. They want to receive this. If they do, that is a mutual experience. That's very different than I don't want to do anything tonight, but I'm going to go down on them just so they're not complaining, or just so that we get this over with, or just so that. Now that is an O belief that I owe. So I got to do something since I'm not doing the thing they want. I got to do something. And a lot of people do that. You talk to college students and high school students, and when you're having mature, I don't have these conversations in all high schools because some are more conservative. Some want to have more open conversations than others. But if you ask in high schools and colleges, when someone says no to sexual activity, what's the next move? And they'll almost all tell you oral. You know that if you're not going to get that, you're probably going to get oral if you ask. Why? Because they're going to do something because they're not going to do nothing because they think they owe something. Right. So now if somebody wants to do oral because they want to, like we said, great. But if they feel they have to, not good.
So how do they overcome that feeling like they owe something to them?
Yeah. And by teaching them the lesson we just went through about this is about your choice of your body and not about rejecting another person. That's the key phrasing and language. You saying no is not rejecting someone. You saying no is not, might not have anything to do with the other person. It's about you honoring your body, your wants, your desires, and listening to yourself instead of what you're supposed to do.
Gotcha.
And men struggle with this. So most commonly when you bring this conversation up, people will tell you this is a big issue for females because the world teaches females keep everyone happy. And so you have to keep everyone happy. The difference for males around this topic is males will be taught you always have to want it. So if you say no to it, then I'm not being a man, or something's wrong with me. So I'm just going to go with this because that's what a man does, versus I'm going to say no because I'm not in the mood tonight, or something's off, or whatever. I can't. A lot of men think they can't do that because that's not being a man. So the reasons can be different amongst genders, but they can be still present for all genders.
Well, and then this is what my thought is that men are more physical, and men, it's not as big of a deal for men. Whereas with women, this is my understanding, anyways, or my perception or my experience, women need to be connected emotionally. It's a much more emotional experience, whereas for men, they can just get off.
Well, and this is where it gets interesting. If we were talking to 18-year-olds, that holds more true.
Okay.
When you get into a man in his 40s
Mm-hmm.
and he is overstressed,
Mm-hmm.
where does that show? It often shows in the bedroom.
Right.
And so suddenly the guy who thought this was just physical doesn't understand what's going on, because he didn't realize it was always emotional. It's just that when he was younger, he was all in for it, and that was his focus. So he was able to be present in the moment. As he got older, other things came into his life that created stressors in that mind that he didn't know could do that, because nobody taught men you also are emotional about sex. Because if you weren't, no stress could cause problems. But anybody who understands ED knows that a lot of ED pills are being used because of stress, anxiety, and men need help to overcome the anxiety to perform. Right. And so men are also connected emotionally. It's just, we see it more obviously as we age, because the body just doesn't perform instantly like it might have at 18 when it's 45. Right. It's a different experience. And so you start to recognize, oh, there's other factors here that we as men were never taught.
Right. Right. I'm thinking about, I think it was Napoleon Hill's book, or Napoleon Hill talks about sexual energy and how sexual energy is the most powerful energy there is. And men that are younger don't correctly channel that energy. I mean, they actually are spending more of their time chasing women, chasing tail, and trying to have sex, as opposed to men that are a little bit older, in their, say, 40s, 50s, later in life. They're spending that sexual energy focused on business or their next venture or their purpose in life or whatever, as opposed to wasting their sexual energy on chasing women. And so I'm just thinking about stress. And when you're stressed, when I'm stressed, when I'm overwhelmed, when I've got a gazillion other things going on, like, the sexual energy is zapped.
Yes, correct. Right. Which is what we just referring to, right? There's so many factors affecting our ability to be present for sexuality. Right. And that's what we learn as we get older. And here's the other difference too. How many people at a young age know their mission? Right. So they don't have a place for that energy to go because there's no mission.
Right.
You and I are around a lot of people that are considered the ones on the islands, that are the drivens, that are living their life differently than go get a job. And there's nothing wrong with that. Without that, we're not functioning as a world, but they live differently. Right. And so we're around a lot of that. So that drives you to, I got this to do, this to do, this to do. Oh, and I get to do that. The sex is and I get to. My whole day isn't based on that because I'm fulfilled in so many other ways. Now, that's also true of the person, to be fair, who goes to the work and has a job, because they're fulfilled potentially in many ways too, through family, through their job. And so it can be true of everybody, but there's more fulfillment. But at 18, how much fulfillment is there? Right. So suddenly you think sex is the one thing that always seems like that. That's what your brain can do. Right. And so that's the one. So I'm going to keep going back to that.
Well, it's the quick fix. I mean, it's like, the result.
And it's addictive. It's addictive because at that age it can repeat.
Yeah. Right.
Right. So, as you get older, the repeat speed slows down.
Right. You're not as ready as quickly. Exactly.
Yes, exactly.
So you want to channel that energy into something that's going to be more long lasting.
Yeah. And the fact is, it's naturally occurring as you age. We don't think about it. I don't wake up and go, let's put my sexual energy towards my workforce mission. It's just my workforce mission gets priority. Right. So that's the difference. And then, okay, now my day is done. Or maybe there's times where you're not in that mode during the day and you think, oh, it's there now, right? The sexual is there. But the difference is if you're not around the partner that you are sexual with all day, you don't have an activator, right? So there's a difference there too. If you are somebody that's activated by everybody that walks by, you're probably not productive in the workplace because you can't focus. And so your sexual drive's still running you at age 45 or 50 because you're not focused where life was meant to focus you during the day or, during that portion of the day.
Right. Is there a question that you wanted me to ask you today that I did not ask?
Ooh. No, you've asked a lot of great questions. There wasn't one in particular. Is there one that you're just thinking off your top? Well, what about this or what about that?
I would have asked it.
I will just say this. The one question that would go around is more the topic. Maybe, I don't know if there's a question I know top of mind, but the topic of what do we do from here? So if you're listening to this podcast and you think, what do I do from here? One, step back and talk to your partner of what does it mean for you if we are having mutually amazing consensual sex? What is that for you? What are the things you don't want that we do? What do you wish I didn't do? Almost nobody asks their partners what they wish they didn't do. Most partners ask, what would you like me to do?
Mm-hmm.
Because they assume their partner will tell them if they don't want it. And they don't forget what we discussed earlier. Most partners don't want to disappoint you. So they often won't tell you what they don't want you to do. And so that continues to be in your relationship. So ask, what do you wish I didn't do? And if they're like, I don't know. Okay. When it happens, let me know. I want to know what you would like me to remove, and we can talk. Now, if it's something that's who I am at my soul, we can discuss, it doesn't mean I have to change who I am for this person either, right? There's a discussion here. That's important. And having this both ways. Two, if your partner says, sorry, not tonight. Sorry, I'm not in the mood. If they're using sorry, stop and go, please never say you're sorry. I would never want you to do this with me if you didn't want to. You never owe me. And I don't ever want you to feel guilt for saying no to me. I only want this to happen when we both want it. So you're both learning together, right? And that's really, really powerful on that journey. So those would be 2 points that can start this. And then the third is going to workforce, everybody listening right now, and go back to everybody who you're responsible for, who you're in charge of, and say, in the past, I may have gave you a question that I expected a yes out of, and I asked a yes or a no, and I expected a yes. And that was unfair. In the future, if it's something that has to be done and it's not a choice, I'll clearly make that statement and release you of whatever you're responsible for in place. Because that's not unfair to say, okay, I'm putting this on your plate and still get the other thing done in the same amount. That's not fair, right? So I'm going to prioritize. If I ask you, you have the right to say yes or no at all times. Because otherwise I shouldn't be asking you a question.
Right. Love it. Okay. Where can people find you? Where can they learn more about you? If they want you to come and speak at their school, at their company, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, easiest way to get a hold of me is centerforrespect.com, spelled all out. So that's centerforrespect.com. And you'll see everything there. Whether you're with a school or a large multi-billionaire corporation, you'll find it all there. You'll be able to pick your section, go into it. All right, they can call me. A lot of people just call direct, 800-329-9390. And they can call me and discuss what they're looking for, and we'll make that happen. This is what you're aware, but this is what I do. I travel the world speaking. It's what I love doing. I love helping organizations take their culture to another level, whether that's a middle school on these topics, or like we said, whether that's a multinational company trying to really take their culture to another place.
800-329-9390. Okay.
And by the way, I did forget one other thing. If they really want to see how this works, go to our YouTube page. Every day I put shorts on there. Shorts are 30-second videos from actual events. So this isn't Mike going, I'm Mike and I'm in Dallas right now. Not that stuff. This is actual footage from events. And that would just be youtube.com/centerforrespect and click into the shorts. There's hundreds because literally every Monday through Friday, we put a new one up there. And so that really that's cool because I know people that'll take it and use it. Like, hey, team, let's watch this 30-second video. And they use it as an educational point.
Awesome. Mike, this was awesome. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed spending time with you.
Well,
And
I feel the same way, Tim. I've always loved your spirit and your energy and the difference you're making in the world. So thank you for what you do.
that does it for my time with Mike Domitrz. And thank you for watching I Love Being Sober. Look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
If you found this video to be of value, be sure to like it, subscribe to our channel if you want to see more videos, leave a comment if you have a question, if you've got something to say. Camelback Recovery provides treatment services for people struggling with mental health, mental illness, addiction, alcoholism. So if you or someone you know is struggling, be sure to reach out to us. You can go to our website, camelbackrecovery.com, or our information is in the comment section below. And we provide everything from detox, inpatient, outpatient treatment, sober living, recovery coaching, sober companion services. So either we'll be able to help you or we'll be able to refer you to people or treatment centers that might be a better fit. So I will see you in the next video.